Welcome to The Real in Real Estate, your gateway to the source. I'm so glad you're here. We're all about diving into the nitty-gritty of real estate, sharing insights, tips, and some awesome interviews straight from the industry's beating heart. From the latest trends to cool investment strategies, we've got you covered. Let's explore and uncover all the essential tools and knowledge you need for navigating the ever-evolving world of property and housing. Here we go. Hi, welcome back to The Real in Real Estate. Today I'm here with appraiser extraordinaire Michael Brubaker of Brubaker and Associates, and we're going to answer your questions about appraisals. So welcome, Mike. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got in the business?
Well, thanks for having me, Gene. How I got in the business is quite by accident, actually. It's a long story, but it was about 1982. So what is that now? 40 some odd years?
42 maybe?
Yeah.
Wow.
I actually acted as a broker for, about a half a year or so, give or take. You guys work way too hard. So I
Yes,
found
we do.
yes. No, I found appraisal and I thought, I like this. So it worked a whole lot better for me anyway. But other than that, yeah, I've been an appraiser here in Houston for a long time. Have seen just about everything. You really can't stump me on much.
Well, I've known you since our boys were in school, obviously, but I've been to many meetings where you were the guest speaker, and the knowledge you have is just incredible. So thank you for joining us today.
Well, thanks for having me.
Yeah. So I know you have your own company, but let's start with the basics. Why do the lenders require appraisals?
Well,
What's the
and
purpose?
that's actually changing a little.
Ah,
Lenders are now this is some of our big lenders. I know for a fact that Chase, for example, does about 30% of what they call their A paper loans. And
okay.
these are mortgages, very good credit scores, willingness and ability to pay is very, very well determined. And so they do about 30% of those loans with no appraisal product whatsoever.
Really? Regardless of the down payment, or
Regardless of the down payment. Yep.
that's news to me
Yep.
too.
Yep. So we're getting okay. So why do lenders want appraisals? They're not really looking out for the borrower. That's, a lot of folks think, well, they're trying to take care of me. That's not really true. They're taking care of them. That's all
Yeah.
they're doing. And they want to make sure really they're looking for fraud. They're not looking for, did you pay $10,000 too much on your $400,000 house? And hopefully buyers are not thinking like that, thinking that the appraiser will protect me from, making a mistake on paying a little too much. What they're really looking for is somebody buying a house for $200,000 and writing a $400,000 contract, getting a $350,000 loan. So that's really what they're looking for. Once you get, certain borrowers at sort of lower credit scores, then yes, they're looking a little bit closer at the appraisal. You're probably still going to get a full appraisal, but we're starting to see now, I've got lenders asking me to do what they call desktop valuations. They say I don't even have to go out and look at the property, just sit right here at my desk and give them a value.
Interesting. I think we did some of that during COVID, which I personally didn't like, but understood why.
Yep. I got to tell you, I'm not really a fan of it. And it's not because it reduces my workload and I make less money. That's really not it. I have no problem sitting here in my house and not getting, well, not my house, my office, and not getting out in that Houston traffic.
Yeah.
I, you know, but the question really is, and I do think we do tend to look out for the borrower a little bit. Um, Sometimes I think it's valuable to have an appraiser, certainly an inspector, go out and look at the
Absolutely.
property
Yes.
and look for defects. And since I brought that up, we do need to make sure everybody understands appraisers are not inspectors. I
Yes,
have been
absolutely.
I have been trained as an inspector. I might be able to see a slab that's really cratering around a house. I might be able to see cracks in the brick, something like that, but I don't really know where they're coming from. So, if you're your buyers are thinking that the appraiser's going to catch stuff that's wrong. That's
No.
that that's really not the case. At best, I may poke my head up in the attic, but I'm not crawling around that AC unit or that heater. I'm never going to see a cracked heat exchanger.
No.
So, my limit of expertise is pretty much valuation. We're looking for comparable sales of similar properties, and that's about it.
And I assume the main purpose, from a lender's standpoint, since lenders are protecting lenders, if the buyer were to default on a loan, they want to make sure they can recoup the money that they loaned. Would that be a good assumption on the purpose of an appraisal? They want to make sure
Yes,
they don't loan too much money?
yes. Now, it's funny though. Back in, and I don't believe you were in the business, and you're probably not old enough to remember this. We'll see. Back in 1982, we lost 100,000 jobs here in Houston. We were foreclosing. The vast majority of appraisals I was working on were foreclosures.
Wow.
Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, HUD, the VA. So, homes, our home values in most homes here in Houston dropped about 30%.
That
So,
much?
yeah, in a case like that, where you lose so many jobs and people leave town and they just walk away from their homes and leave the keys on the kitchen countertop. Yeah, what that home was worth when they bought it, that's not what it's worth
No.
now. So, you know, um, yes, it's the goal in a normal market to make sure that their loan amount is covered, but it doesn't always work out that way.
No, well, hopefully, knock on wood, we don't go through that again. But
No,
yeah, that was also the era of the 18% interest rates, if I remember correctly.
that's exactly what that was.
Yes, we don't
Yep,
want to do that. So when you go to, okay, well, I guess you kind of answered that already. When you go to appraise a home, you're looking at the general condition of the home versus the other homes in the area that have sold of similar size, correct? Yes.
yep, yep.
Okay.
So, you sort of touching on something, and I don't know if you want to get into it, but I get a lot of folks that say, well, what's a comparable sale?
Let's go there. Sure,
You
absolutely.
know, so and where some folks will try to say, well, this house down the road sold for $460 a square foot. Appraisers nor lenders ever look at price per square foot.
Interesting.
They just don't look at it. Lending underwriters never look at price per square foot, and they really drive the bus relative to what they want to see on an appraisal. So, and I know buyers look at it, especially
Yeah.
those engineers out in Katy. They'll get their Excel spreadsheets out and
Yes.
they come up with a price $423.26 a square foot, and that's all I want to pay. Um, but once it gets into the appraisal for the lender, price per square foot never ever comes up. Here's what the lender wants to see. And to your point, um, they want to make sure that they won't lose their money. Let's a tragic situation. Let's say young couple goes out, buys a house. After closing, they go and celebrate, drink 3 bottles of wine, get hit by a train on their way home. Never
Yeah.
make the first payment.
Right.
So, is the lender going to be able to recoup their money? In theory, yes. So, but here's what they want me to show them. Um, they want me to show them 3 sales, at least a minimum of 3, just like the subject.
Right.
Very, very similar to the subject. So if the subject is call it a 4,000 square foot, 4 bedroom, 3.5 bath house with a 2 car garage, they think in terms of first payment default, that tragic couple. That's not a true story, by the way. I just make that stuff up.
Okay.
But yeah. But so what they want to know is, can I sell that? Is there demand for that kind of a home?
Okay.
So, let's imagine, so the subject says 4,000 square foot house, 4 bedroom, 3.5 bath. Next door is a 2,500 square foot home, and it just sold last week.
Okay.
That's not a comparable sale because that doesn't show the lender the demand for that 4,000 square foot home.
Mhm.
They want me to show them that proof of marketability. And the way I do that is three similar sales, very, very comparable homes, very similar homes. And then they want them like in the same neighborhood.
Right.
They want them current. They prefer 6 months, maybe up to a year-old sales. So that's what they're really looking for.
Okay.
So, you're sort of what's a comparable sale is I tell folks, imagine you were visiting your brother-in-law because you're interviewing for a job here in Houston. You stayed at their house and you got
Okay.
the job, and you come back and you celebrate. You go, yeah, we got the job. And by the way, your house is perfect. We want to buy your house. It's in the schools we want to be at. It's close to the park. It's close to the airport, whatever they want. We want to buy your house. Of course, that guy goes, no, I'm happy in my house. I'm not going to sell it. So what would he look for? It's the same neighborhood, same schools, same locational amenities, whatever those happen to be.
Right.
So that's what Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, and HUD want to see.
Well, that's a great example. And you know what? While we're talking about comparables, as a realtor, I get asked all the time, well, if I put in the pool, will I get that money back? Or if I put in a generator, and I always tell them you'll get some of the money back. You'll never get it dollar for dollar. Am I telling them correctly?
Well, I'm glad you brought up generators.
Very popular right now.
Very popular. You can get pretty much across the board dollar for dollar value on a generator.
All right.
So
Great.
so it's where we're going, your pool,
Mhm.
not so much. Not so much. How much you going to get? Well, it kind of depends. And the way to look is say, how many other homes in that neighborhood have a pool? If nobody else in that neighborhood has a pool, it means nobody else wants one. So if you're the first guy to put a pool in that neighborhood, you're putting a pool in a neighborhood where nobody wants one for whatever reason. Maybe the neighborhood pool is so phenomenal that
Right.
nobody's going to build their own personal pool. Maybe the lots are so small that it doesn't really fit well. Whatever reason, if there's no other pools in the neighborhood, you're not going to get a whole lot of money back.
Okay.
If every home in the neighborhood has a pool, then there's a good chance you're going to get a lot of your money back. Um, let's
Interesting.
let's aggravate the environmentalists because I'm an old hippie surfer.
Okay.
I would love the environment to work, clean environment. I will tell you the one thing, and I've got evidence all over the place here in Houston anyway. Solar panels, you don't get a nickel for them,
Interesting.
and
I
it's
think I've heard that
disappointing.
before. Yeah.
Yep. If you go to Austin, on the other hand, solar panels, you can get money back. If you go to Phoenix, where the sun is just outrageous, you can get money back. You can get a return for your investment. For whatever reason, here in Houston, we just haven't bought into them yet. And I saw two homes sell. One of them, the guy was a solar panel salesman. He put what cost him $50,000 worth of solar panels on his house.
Wow.
That was him with his in-company discount, all that. Who knows what it would have cost all of us?
Right.
The almost identical home across the street with no solar panels whatsoever, those two homes sold for the exact same price.
Interesting. Wow.
Nobody cares about the solar panels
Yeah.
here in Houston. So some things add value, some things don't. But the easiest way to tell is if you're putting in an amenity that most all your neighbors have, that's a pretty good indication that most neighbors want that.
Yes.
If you have in your listing, you're going through you're describing the house and you're going, this home has this amenity. There's nothing else like it in Houston. We have about 120,000 millionaires in the Houston area. There's a lot of money in this town.
Yes, there is.
If nobody else has that amenity, it's a pretty good indication that nobody else wants that amenity.
So true.
Yeah. So rarity doesn't necessarily make it valuable.
True, true. And from a real estate, not necessarily appraisal, it all depends on what that particular buyer is wanting. If someone's coming in from California, they may really want those solar panels, even if it's not popular in the area. But
yeah.
That's
No, I get that.
So what if, Michael, what if I disagree with it? Let's say we have a property that is $300,000 and for whatever reason, the appraisal comes in at 280. Well, obviously the lender's not going to lend more than 280. So the buy, we've got several options we have to go through, but I don't, is it possible to contest an appraisal?
So it's possible. Let me say one thing though, and this will disappoint an awful lot of people.
That's all right,
A
say
l-
it.
yeah, a lot of people think an appraisal is a fact. 10 different appraisers had
It's an
come up with the
opinion.
same different number. It's a fact. It has to be a fact. It's not a fact. It's an opinion. And, so you look at somebody like me with 42 years of experience versus an appraiser that's been he's been an appraiser for 1 year. Take him in a neighborhood where he's never been before.
Oh, not good.
Not good. And the problem is that can happen on your mortgage loan. So I'm not going to say that the appraisal is, and what I never ever want a seller to do is because the appraisal comes in at say 280, I never want to see a seller renegotiate to a lower price.
I know
He
I've
didn't.
heard you say time and time again, that's the buyer's problem.
That's the buyer's financing problem. That's all that is. Especially in a market like today. If you look at the Greater Houston Partnership, we brought in April little over 20,000 jobs into the Houston market in
Fantastic.
the month of April. We normally, a normal job market here in Houston will bring in 50 to 60,000 jobs a year.
Wow,
So far for this calendar year, we've already brought in 80,000 jobs.
that's incredible.
It's incredible. So one thing I'm kind of fond of saying is we got an awful lot of people right now that they're kind of complaining about high interest rates and they want the interest rates to come down. And you mentioned in 82, the interest rates were 18%.
Yeah.
In the mid 70s, when I bought my first home, I paid 8.125% and was happy to get that because it was going up to 8.25. So these 7% rates historically are fabulous rates. The rates are not going to come down. Not anytime soon. You've got to watch the Fed, their predictions. They're trying to control inflation, which people years of my age, we don't want inflation because it eats away at our life
Absolutely.
savings.
Well, nobody
So,
wants inflation, but yes, absolutely.
yeah, so they're going to fight this. And you're never going to see 2 and 3%
No.
interest rates again. Those should have never happened to begin with. So I hear a lot of folks saying, well, I'm waiting for one of two things to happen. Either the interest rates to come down or the prices to come down.
Mhm.
And neither of which is going to happen because if you're bringing in 20,000 jobs in 1 month, that's demand.
Yes.
Prices go with supply and demand. And if you're out there, there's not many homes on the market. If it's a nice home, it sells fast.
Two of my last three listings sold for over asking price in one day. The other one did not sell on day one, but it sold for full price. So yeah, people are still buying out there.
They're still buying, the prices aren't coming down. And again, that's a function of supply and demand.
Yes.
So, if for whatever reason we started losing jobs in Houston, which I can't see that happening anytime soon.
No.
I've lived here since 68, with the exception of 1982, and that was that oil bust, if you
Right.
remember all
Yes.
that back then.
Yes.
Um, we've been a job creating machine. We're, as long as you see we're continuing to grow, then the prices aren't going to come down. The interest rate we can't control.
No.
And let's imagine, and you've seen all the little probably memes and maybe stuff in the paper that says, in let's imagine in 1975 or whenever it was I bought that first house, let's imagine the interest rates were 8.125%, and I was going to wait till they got to 7%. I would have bought a house just a few years ago
Yeah.
and missed all of that price appreciation.
Right. And all your money would have gone to someone else's equity in someone else's pocket.
you're always making, if you're living somewhere, you're making a payment, whether you're making it for yourself or for somebody else. That's up to
Exactly.
you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'd rather make it for myself.
Oh, yeah. And it's always been, everybody says, well, it's so expensive to buy a house. It's always been a sacrifice to buy a house. It's
Yes.
always been difficult to buy a house. It's never been easy. And saving for that down payment has always been a problem.
But
That's,
it's an investment. It's an investment. If you turn around and buy stocks and bonds, I still think real estate's a better investment.
you don't get to live in your stocks.
No, you don't.
Yeah.
And sometimes they don't do well.
Yeah. No, that's true too.
Okay, Mike, if I have and I just had an appraiser out yesterday on one of my listings, is there anything a seller or an agent needs to do to prepare the home for an appraisal, other than obviously make sure it's accessible?
Yeah, that's the biggest thing. And I apologize. We skipped about, can we appeal a value and
Okay,
all
well,
that.
let's go back to that. We can always come to
Well,
the end.
but this here, you know, um, if you've got it doesn't hurt, especially if they're working, through a professional like yourself. You've already got a brag sheet.
Yes.
Make sure that appraiser knows everything. And we have where I am, I'm sitting here in Old Spring Branch. We have a neighborhood here where there's some weird school boundary lines.
Yes.
And this one little neighborhood goes to an elementary school, goes to Hunters Creek Elementary School.
I know which neighborhood you're talking about.
Yeah, those homes sell. Now, these are expensive homes to begin with, so this number is kind of shocking, but they sell for about $100,000 more than the ones that go to the adjacent elementary school.
Mhm.
That appraiser that's only been doing it for 1 year, he doesn't know that.
No, he doesn't.
So those are the things I would educate an appraiser about. You're allowed to communicate with the appraiser, educate them on everything. Let's imagine that the house was built by an engineer and he put in 2x6 studs instead of 2x4 studs. And then he went one step further and he even insulated the stud walls between each room.
Mhm.
It's a very quiet house. Is the
Yeah,
appraiser going to notice that?
not unless you tell him.
No. Is there value? We finished a house just not that long ago. The guy was an arms dealer.
Oh,
He had bulletproof doors and windows everywhere. About a 6,000 square foot house over here in 77024. Um, so the question was, how many people want bulletproof glass? And if you
right.
look around, you go, well, I don't have any comparable sales. So there's your answer.
Yeah.
If nobody else has it, it really means nobody else wants it. But the one thing that was different about that house that, it was a function with the bulletproof glass and the bulletproof doors. It was very quiet.
Yes, that's a plus.
It was very well insulated, very quiet, and dust free. Nothing was getting through those windows.
I hadn't thought about that. That's right.
Yes. So the satellite advantage, did I think there was value to the bulletproof windows? Yes, but not because they were bulletproof, because they were very well insulated, because it was quiet inside the house. So, those are things, had they not told me about that, there's no way I would have noticed that. No way an appraiser
Right.
would have said, oh, that's bulletproof glass, because they've never seen it before. And it
Well,
just frankly doesn't look that different.
well, and as a realtor, I always meet appraisers at my listings. That's just what I do for that very reason. I give them a list of everything that they can't see or don't know, or where we come from, all the upgrades. So I think it's important that that does communicate. I don't try to tell him what his job is, but I let him know what he's coming
And
up.
make sure he knows he can call you if he has any questions.
Absolutely. Yes.
But you've already worked real hard to sell the house to the buyers.
Right.
Don't quit selling until that house is closed. Sell it to the
Exactly.
appraiser. Yeah,
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah.
Yes. I recently I went in one appraiser the minute he walked in, he goes, "What are your comps?" It's like, "Oh, well, okay, here I have it." And then yesterday when I met the appraiser, he's like, "I already know this is going to appraise. You don't have to, the whole thing."
Right.
So it's like, "Thank you
Yeah.
very much. Here's my number if you've got questions."
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely. And, we talked about that one neighborhood that went to the special elementary school.
yes.
It was back in 1984, and I remember this very well, that I was working on an appraisal in that neighborhood, and I didn't know that. And my value was coming in less than contract price. So I picked up the phone, called the listing agent, and I said, I'm missing something. And this is back in the old days. We had If we had computers that were on that thermo heat
Oh,
stuff,
yes.
they
Yeah.
printed very, very slow, but we were probably still with the books where you flip through the pages. Um, in any event, that agent said, well, what are you using for comps? And I gave her the addresses, and she says, do me a favor, don't turn anything in. Let me call you back tomorrow. And so she did her research. She called me back the next day. She said, here's what you're missing.
Uh,
All of my comps were close. They
but not in
looked
the neighborhood.
great on paper, but not in the neighborhood. And she explained that to me. And I think that's the difference between a very, very experienced appraiser, because I know I don't know everything, but I think some rookie appraisers think they know
No.
everything. And I really do think it's the experienced guy that'll go, what am I missing? Am I
Right.
missing something? And
And he's not
that's
afraid
not
to
a sign,
ask.
if there's appraisers listening, it's not a sign of weakness on the appraiser's fault. Um, Curiosity is one of the most, if I'm interviewing a new appraiser, I want a sense of curiosity. I want that appraiser to go, huh, what is that? What am I missing?
Right.
Because without that, there's so much they're going to miss. There's so
Yeah.
much they're going to miss.
And it's so hard, from my experience, it is hard to go back to an appraisal and say, this, I'm sorry, this can't possibly be right. So, yes, thank you for getting curious people.
Yep. So to go back to your, can you appeal an appraisal? Here's what you have to do. Now, one, the VA, and a
Oh,
lot of folks poo-poo a VA loan. A VA loan's a fabulous loan. They have a process they call the Tidewater process. I'm a VA appraiser. If I think the home is worth less than contract price, before I even turn in the appraisal, we have to initiate what's called the Tidewater process.
interesting.
And all the alerts go out to everybody, and everybody gets to get me information before my appraisal report even goes out. So that's fabulous with the VA.
Mm.
With anybody else, here's here's what you. It's hard to appeal. You can't really complain about the guy's opinion.
Right, it's
You
an
can't say
opinion.
he's wrong because his opinion is wrong. But if you can find factual evidence that's wrong within that appraisal, then you can go, he didn't even understand. Or let's imagine you've got, and I'm not suggesting you go remeasure the house, but let's
Yeah,
imagine you've looked at his sketch and he says this wall's 12 feet, and you go, well, it's a lot bigger than 12 feet. And you go put your tape measure on it and it's 20 feet.
big difference.
Big difference. Big difference. That's a factual error that you can go back and say he's wrong. But here's what a lender can't do. They can't continue to order appraisal after appraisal after appraisal till they get one they like,
Right, well, no, obviously,
because
yeah,
that starts to look like fraud. So they
yeah,
can't do that.
no. Well, we're getting close to the end of our session. Is there anything you want to talk about that we have missed or not gone over, or you think the public would love to know, or realtors would love to know?
I don't, the interest rate thing, I think,
Mhm.
and I think our buyers, I think the market's finally reconciling to, oh my God, this is the way it is right now.
Yeah,
So once they get used to that, and remember that for centuries, I mean, in the 40s, the interest rate was 5%. You're not going back down to 5%. I mean, it's just not going to happen. Um, the appraisal, it's one person's opinion. Um, if it comes in less than contract price, here's what I think you want to do as a realtor. You want to make certain that that guy calls you before the appraisal goes out.
mhm.
Because once the appraisal has been delivered, human nature kicks in. No appraiser wants to admit he did something wrong.
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely. None of us do.
Yep, your best bet is to be able to communicate with that appraiser, and however you choose to go meet them at the door. Some folks don't want to do that. Whatever is your personal business style, but make certain that that appraiser knows that he can call you with any questions whatsoever.
Yes. Yes, I always do, even the inspectors.
Yep. Oh yeah, absolutely.
Well,
Absolutely.
Mike, thank you so much for doing this and taking time out of your very busy day. I really appreciate it.
Well, thanks
And
for having me. It was fun.
if anyone needs a home measured or appraised, call Brubaker and Associates. And do you want to? We will have your contact information in the podcast, and this does go to YouTube the week after it's posted on the podcast. But is
Okay.
you want to give us your website address or however?
If you just Google Brubaker appraiser, you're going to
You'll
get
pop
me.
up. Okay.
You'll pop up. Yeah.
Okay, wonderful. Well, thanks again, Mike. Thanks so much for doing this. I really appreciate it. And I always love hearing you be the guest speaker at any event. Thank you.
Well, thanks for having me. You have a great day.
You too. Thanks for tuning in to The Real in Real Estate, your gateway to the source. Be sure not to miss our upcoming episodes loaded with fantastic insights, expert tips, and all the latest trends in the property scene. Don't forget to stay connected with us on our Trilogy Realty Group socials, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and even TikTok. Until next time, take care.